We've all known for a long time that the man himself, Mr. Scott Cawthon, has been long planning and working on the fabled Five Nights at Freddy's movie. We've been hearing about this movie's production for over a year, but honestly, we haven't really seen much in the form of results. Well, now Scott has come out with some relatively new information that can be seen as good or bad depending on how you look at it. But before I get into that, let's quickly go over what we know about the FNAF movie. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie has been in the works since 2015. That's 2 years, people! If this movie was a baby, it would have already said its first word, which probably would have been death or exotic butters based on the games. With 2 years of movie production done, we're hoping to see the movie come to fruition next year. But now, with Scott's more recent updates, this seems a lot less likely. I'm going to go over the most recent update in detail, so I'll read it in its entirety. I know that I promised some movie news by the end of the month, so here it is. However, keep in mind that there are still some very important discussions in progress, so the amount of information that I can share is extremely limited. In fact, even the information that I can share will have to remain somewhat cryptic. The reality is that last year the FNAF movie was met with several delays and roadblocks, some involving problems within the movie industry as a whole. As a result, as of now, the movie is back at square one. However, depending on your point of view, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's because the movie is in its early stages again, so don't expect a trailer anytime soon. But it's good because I want to make sure that the right movie gets made, and things are on track right now for that to happen. I'm also going to be involved with the movie from day one this time, and that's something extremely important to me. I want this movie to be something that I'm excited for the fan base to see. So there you have it. I know that this news might come as a disappointment to some, but there are going to be a lot of great things happening in 2017. So let's look at this update from two different perspectives, as an optimist and as a pessimist. Let's start with pessimism so we can end on a happier note. Alright, to get into the right pessimistic mindset, we're going to go through a depressing exercise. Ready? Dead puppies, dead puppies, dead puppies. The world isn't fair and never will be, and the odds will always be stacked against you. No matter who you meet or what you do, and no matter how much you try to make a difference, the reality of life is that you're only one person living a relatively uneventful life that is not even a speck on the cosmic scale of time. Alright, y'all down and depressed? Good! So, let's infer a more reasonable explanation for why Scott is starting back at square one. The most likely answer would be that he didn't have enough control over the movie, which is kinda what he says in his post if you read between the lines. I'm specifically referring to this paragraph. Quote, "I'm also going to be involved with the movie from day one this time." And that's something extremely important to me. I want this movie to be something that I'm excited for the fan base to see. So the worst possible outcome from this news should be pretty obvious. The movie is dead, right? That's like as bad as it could possibly get. It's completely possible that Scott sunk a ton of money into creating a FNAF movie, and for whatever reason that he most likely can't talk about because of an NDA, which stands for non-disclosure agreement in case you didn't know, Scott has actually decided that it's too expensive and too much trouble to start over with the movie, and he is slowly breaking it to his fans. If this is actually the scenario, over the course of the next year or so, Scott will slowly ease us into the idea that the movie isn't going to happen, so when he finally reveals the movie has been completely cancelled, it doesn't seem like such a surprise. But remember, this is the absolute worst outcome. Is that what I think is going to happen? No, it isn't. What I'm getting from this is that Scott wasn't actually involved with the FNAF movie that he was originally trying to create. Most likely, some studio was trying to buy the rights for the movie adaptation of Five Nights at Freddy's, and they wanted to make the movie without really getting input from Scott along the way. As a creator myself, I definitely feel the struggle Scott might have had over this. On one side, this company is probably offering him a large sum of money that could be used for retirement, to put his kids through college, or to create new and better games in the future. It was probably enough for him to set up a team of game developers under him to produce better games faster. Five Nights at Freddy's isn't nearly as popular as it was 2 years ago. It might be a good time to cash out and let someone else handle the franchise. This isn't a new idea. We saw Bungie do the same thing with Halo not too long ago when they sold the franchise to 343. But there's another side to this coin. Selling something you've created that you've built from the ground up is like giving up your child or your dog that you've had since it was a puppy. You don't want to give it away and then watch helplessly as it isn't properly taken care of by someone else. So the best thing to do when something is your intellectual property but someone else wants to use it is to work on the new product together, which is exactly what Scott is saying here. It's pretty apparent that Scott wasn't going to be involved, and he decided that wasn't okay with him. So either he's working with a new company to make the movie, or the studio he was working with decided to give him input. But considering Scott says the movie is back to square one, I'd assume it's a new company. And honestly, that's the best possible scenario. Scott knows his games, and they have a very specific sense of fear, confusion, and mystery that should be replicated in the movie. He may not be a filmmaker, but working alongside a good filmmaker should help the movie keep the same feelings that the games have. But since the project is back at ground zero, we're probably looking at least 2 more years before this movie gets released. So the real question is, will Five Nights at Freddy's still have a large enough fan base in 2 years? That's the question I want to pass on to you guys, because honestly, I can see it going either way. Do you think FNAF will still be popular enough to succeed as a movie in 2 years? The franchise has already lasted nearly 3 years, but there's definitely been a decline in interest in the games. Not a huge decline though. In fact, if you look at FNAF via Google Trends, you can see that each game still raises a massive spike in interest. But there's no guarantee that this trend will continue, especially since Scott is taking a lot more time between each release. Personally, I think if the FNAF movie had released on schedule in 2018, it would have been successful. But now we're probably looking at a 2020 release at the earliest. I'm not sure what you think, but to me, I can definitely see the popularity of FNAF falling too much in the next couple of years for there to be a successful movie. But I also commend Scott on wanting to make it the right movie. So, is the FNAF movie already dead? I don't know, but it's definitely possible. But again, I really want to know what you guys think. You're the fan base of the franchise. Do you see yourself still being interested in 2 years? Would you even go to see a FNAF movie if it came out tomorrow? Let us know down below. We're really interested to hear what you have to say. Other than that, if you haven't seen it, feel free to check out our story you never knew on the message you missed in Five Nights at Freddy's, or any one of our other FNAF videos. As always, we appreciate it if you hit that bell so you get notified when we upload, cause who knows what's happening with YouTube anymore. There's age restriction, there's restricted mode, it's anyone's guess what might come next. That's all for me today. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.